UK's strategy up to yesterday was, look, it's all going to be grand. And then yesterday, obviously, it was like, it's not grand. Everybody has to go into lockdown.
Mm. It's quite a spec. I didn't actually notice it. I didn't know that there was still a lot of holidaymakers coming this way. Can they find an Airbnb to stay in? I'm sure that's going to be another problem that they might encounter over here. Like, what a unbelievable U-turn from the United Kingdom, really, isn't it? It's to go from a situation where herd immunity is fine. It's amazing that the straw that broke the camel's back is actually scenes in Tesco, which has clearly completely bewildered Boris Johnson and has incited him to actually change his entire mind on this and kind of comes out with this almost full lockdown. Like, we've got the word lockdown gets thrown around quite easily, but if you're allowed to go outside there and do 25 minutes of one exercise, remember, per day, then is that a full lockdown is my question. Like I saw Dan McDonald on Twitter last night makes a very valid point that triathletes are now going to be screwed over, that they might be exempt from the one sport rule.
But that is one sport, that's the thing. So actually they benefit massively. Now is the time for everybody to become a triathlete, because you can cycle. I don't know where you're going to swim. I mean, I suppose you could swim in the sea, and then maybe the sea's going to be a bit cleaner, is it? Is Dollymount going to be a bit cleaner or is it actually going to be worse?
People aren't in it.
Well, it's not the people at Dollymount that's the issue, Owen. It's the human shit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the problem.
Yeah, I would say that level of pollution probably isn't going to go away. Like, if I'd say air pollution is great, so maybe cycling is better for your lungs or something like this at this point. I don't know, really. Who knows what's actually good for you at this point. But yeah, like, if you're a triathlete, it's clearly not the worst thing in the world. You can do all those three disciplines at a fairly safe distance from people. Anybody who's a triathlete in Ireland, I'm sure, is thriving under these conditions. But yeah, I wonder, like, what sport would you pick if you had your 25 minutes? What would it be? Like, you can obviously try and do a bit in your back garden, but once you've got that 25 minutes of freedom, you can do whatever you want on the pavements of London or wherever you're living. It's a huge opportunity for people.
I don't know. I mean, I guess cycling. Like, that's obviously we're kindred spirits here. Owen is a cyclist who competed in the triathlon last year. How did that go again?
Basically climbed Alpe d'Huez like Marco Pantani, really. Pantani. Like, absolute king of the mountains over here. I'm missing the mountains right now, missing the huge strain of getting to the apex and looking around and knowing that you are at a higher altitude than everybody else in the country. I miss that feeling. That's what I miss most about this whole thing.
Miles ahead, only to get the exhilaration of the breeze rolling through your head immediately afterwards, through your hair and other parts.
Yeah, I know the feeling. It's an amazing feeling.
What would you do?
I don't know, to be quite honest. I think it's got to be no, to be fair, it's hard to beat. Even if you go as slow as I do, it is hard to beat a cycle, because you do get optimum wind through your entire face and body. That is something that you can't replicate elsewhere. I can't run particularly fast, so you can't really replicate it on that front. But you've got to do something like that. You've got to wreck yourself so that's your 25 minutes done. And then you get home and you're suffering for the first half an hour that you're home, because you're so wrecked from your very mild bit of exercise. So that kind of kills a full hour of your day. So it has to be something strenuous, is my feeling, because what's the point otherwise? What's the point in only wasting your half an hour on just that half an hour? So yeah, a run or a cycle for me, and then, I don't know, play some sport in your own house. So, like, follow one of the home workouts. Then at that point, go into your back garden and then do something else.
I was just about to say, yeah. So we had Joey Boland on yesterday kicking it off. We've got Andy Dunn on today. He's obviously a physio, and he's going to talk to us about a variation on some of the stuff that you might be able to do at home, some stuff that we haven't seen before or heard of before. But obviously, you could just set up a goals in your back garden and play with yourself, it turns out.
You really could. You absolutely could. I'm sure that there's plenty of kids who've tried to do something like this. Obviously, this video from Sarah Jane Tobin yesterday went viral of her son kicking a ball up against the wall because he's a goalkeeper. Who would have thought it, that goalkeepers would be the position that would benefit most from the coronavirus lockdown? But this is a bit of innovation from a kid, and like Peter Schmeichel, David De Gea, all the great Manchester United goalkeepers retweeting this stuff from a Dublin Garden yesterday, which was quite incredible. The the amount of retweets and likes it got was
6
was
million
insane,
views.
actually.
6 million views. Ben Watson didn't get any mention as a former Man United goalkeeper, as one of the ones who was always, hey, it's Michael. Like he was actually offering like a training session or something specific, I think. I think
Juan Mata,
the same thing, was it?
he like offered to take a few free kicks on the kid whenever this whole thing was over.
All right.
Which like Juan Mata obviously is a great man.
He is a great man. He is a great man. It was Ben Foster. Sorry, Ben Foster.
I was thinking, well, who is Ben Watson? Obviously, it's going to be one of these moments where I'm like, you got to be older to understand that joke, Owen. So I was just I just bit my tongue there. I assumed he was before my time, Ben Watson.
Look, there's one of those jokes coming up a little bit later, as you know, as I told you. Anyway, one of the things that we're doing over the course of the next while is we're talking about stuff that you should be spending time on. None of this learn a language, pick up the guitar, learn a musical instrument, no be kind to your fellow man nonsense or be kind to your intellect. It's sit down on your couch and watch some good quality TV. What are we watching today?
Well, we're doing our player ratings show. We're starting it today, and we're rating the players in season 1 of Better Call Saul. So it's available on Netflix for Breaking Bad and non-Breaking Bad viewers alike. It's something that you and I have both been binging over the last little while. I think you're so far ahead of me now at this point that I'm not going to be able to catch you. But we are going to do this season by season, so I probably will have time to get through it as we do all these episodes. So we're going to focus on maybe individual films as the next couple of weeks go by, but also individual seasons. And as I say, today we're starting with Better Call Saul. So for people who are interested in watching it, perhaps join us a little bit later on. And for people who are watching it, definitely join us a little bit later on as we give our absolute correct takes, our ratings out of 10, and our player ratings descriptions on all the important players from season 1 of the TV show.
Right, at 7:38 this morning. If you've got views on Better Call Saul, you can WhatsApp the show on 0879 180 180. That's the number. Or you can always drop us a WhatsApp or a tweet rather, @OffTheBallAM or @OffTheBall. The Republican Party manager Mick McCarthy says the Irish public can't take any chances with COVID-19. He says he was isolating at home prior to Boris Johnson's lockdown announcement anyway. His 2 neighbours have been diagnosed with the virus, and he has asked for people to stay safe and stay apart. The Champions League, Europa League and Women's Champions League finals have all been postponed officially. UEFA say they've begun examining the calendar about potential rearrangements. In rugby, Simon Zebo says he's had no contact with New Ireland head coach Andy Farrell. The former Munster back has been in international exile since his move to French side Racing 92. Zebo says he has a very good relationship with Farrell, whether he's picked for the team or not. And he did say there was only one team that he would play for in Ireland, and that was obviously Munster. In the Olympics, contrasting views from the board of the IOC regarding the fate of Tokyo 2020 last night. Dick Pound said that the Games will be postponed, but the ramifications of that decision would need to be ironed out. But the IOC Vice President, Anita de France, said no decision had been made, and it was news to her if they had been postponed. Obviously, Dick Pound's Canadian, Canada had pulled their athletes, Australia pulled their athletes. A bunch of countries are going to decide this and force the hands of the IOC. And there's obviously a bit of window dressing to be done and coordination between the IOC and their various commercial partners. So and exactly when would be refixed for, Dick Pound was saying 2021. The Olympic Federation of Ireland will canvass the thoughts of athletes and member associations before deciding on their potential participation in racing. There is a 7-race card behind closed doors at Clonmel this afternoon. The first is off at 2 o'clock. Here's what's coming up on the show today. We have Nathan and Sarah Jane Tobin are going to join us to talk to us about their newfound international celebrity and what it's like to go viral from your back garden. Jarlath Regan is going to join us after 8 o'clock to talk to us about the lockdown in the UK and a few other things as well, the importance of comedy at a time like this. Andy Dunn's going to join us at around about 8:35 for our daily Off the Couch, helping you to, make some sense of, to get some of the physical endorphins some of the endorphins that you get from physical exercise going. This was something that Alan Quinlan mentioned on the show yesterday, just how important it is. And then we've got the player ratings for Better Call Saul, and we recorded a crappy quiz. I wouldn't watch it today. It's at 9:05, and it was completely rubbish. Owen wrote it from his home. He just doesn't have enough human contact at the moment to be able to check what's a good question and what's a fair question, and it was kind of ridiculous. I think you'll admit that now, 24 hours on, right? It was ridiculous.
What does writing it from my home have to do with it? I actually write quite a lot of quizzes from my home,
well,
and this has been you're looking at the walls of inspiration for the greatest quizmaster in Ireland right now. So I don't understand your reference right there. Absolutely ignored. There's like kind of a preview of sour grapes is what people are hearing. A lot of annoying whinging in this. There's enough people whinging right now. There's people whinging about people, as you said, queuing up for fish shops. There's people whinging about people who are in parks. They all have like legitimate concerns to whinge and legitimate grounds to whinge. You guys have no grounds to whinge. I can write whatever question I want, and you can get it wrong, which tends to happen, and whinge about it. But don't air it to the national audience. They've got bigger things to worry about, Ger. So you know what? I'm telling you and Nathan to just stop before it happens. This is going to be an absolute cry fest later on, as far as I'm concerned.
On the tight shot there, the walls of inspiration are a blank white wall, kind of look like an insane asylum.
Blue sky thinking.
You need to like draw pictures on the back wall for us so that we can see that there is some brain activity still going on in your head.
Well, as I say, a blank sheet is the most inspirational thing you can possibly have in life, Ger.
Right, time for the sports pages.
OTB AM.
I am starting with the Irish Independent here this morning. It's 7:42 if you're listening to OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio. On the back page of the Irish Independent, leagues face axe as D-Day looms for GAA fixture list. So we're going to have a good few of these stories coming. The shape of the GAA season is likely to become clearer in the next 24 hours as the association awaits a fresh direction from the government on a probable extension of restrictions imposed on gatherings earlier on in the month. So obviously, after everybody went out and had the crack at the weekend, the government came under a lot of pressure, and they are meeting today. The National Health Committee meets, and then the Cabinet meets to do exactly what they're told from the original meeting. And one of the things that they're thinking about is cancelling all gatherings of more than essentially 2 people. So, and cancelling public parks, closing public parks and closing beaches, which is one of those, we can't have nice things because we always fuck them up. And this is one of those instances where it would be nice for us all to be able to go to the beach and walk on the beach with a bit of social distancing, but we just couldn't manage it. The instructions were too hard. We couldn't think about being 2 metres apart from each other. Great tweet yesterday about my wife said something about, not my wife now, this is the tweet. My wife said it would just be, if you can imagine having a Niall Quinn between us in the bed. And Paul Howard tweeted, yeah, my wife says not at the moment, maybe when all this is over.
Just like on the we can't have nice things situation, like there are tons of people around this country who have engaged in obtaining nice things over the last few days and have done it in a very safe manner. But there are people, and granted, they are very fortunate to live in locations where they might be near a secluded beach or a less quiet beach, or near parks that aren't so public, that aren't called Glendalough or that aren't called Howth, for example. And they've been engaging in it quite well. And I'm sure that, like, the whole point about it in the first place was that people should be encouraged to get out. People should be encouraged to go and see what they've got in their locality. And unfortunately, that just goes too far. It tends to happen quite a bit in this country, unfortunately.
It's true. The other thing is that loads of the photographs that you saw people giving out about, people were actually maintaining social distance. Like, just because 2 cars are parked beside each other doesn't mean that everybody got out and then, like, were dry riding for 20 minutes right beside each other. There was no swapping of saliva because these 2 cars parked beside each other. Like, there was definitely a mad overreaction stuff, and then there was also, like, house parties and people hanging out and barbecues. The sound of barbecues wafting over the walls. You're like, really? That doesn't sound like everybody in the house lives there all the time.
Well, listen, when this whole thing is over, everybody now knows to go to Howth if they want a bit of dry riding, clearly. That's what the situation. The barbecues thing, like, I mean, that could obviously be, if you're just smelling that could be 2 people. But it is kind of a bit of a tease, isn't it, saying you've
had some barbecues at the back, have you, just making the neighbours and the recorded sound of voices. You actually play old OTB AM, so it makes it sound like Kenny Cunningham's there and Johnny Ward, Nathan. Yeah,
it's like that false reality is the only thing sadder than my actual real life, it seems. So thank you for painting that picture. It's actually not a bad idea. It's the companion that you can have in your own back garden by saying, hey, Alexa, give me some friends, or whatever you tend to say.
A very realistic thing for us here. It's 7:46. I've got to bring you offtheball.com. Sorry, I meant to do this one first. So offtheball.com this morning. Fate finds cruel and unusual new ways of challenging Paddy Cunningham. So Paddy Cunningham is an Antrim footballer who had made a comeback to the inter-county scene after, is it 6 or 8 years away from the inter-county scene, and had played, he's 35 now, had played all of the games at the start of the league and had played really well, had been like dominating games, had been Antrim's best player. And he's done a great interview with Arthur James O'Dea, where in the middle of it, he kind of realises, Jesus, maybe I played my last game for Antrim, because obviously there's great uncertainty about whether or not there will be any matches later on this year. Now, we all have to live and hope that there will be some sporting activity, particularly on an island. Maybe if we lock our borders at some point and give ourselves time to get through this, then there'll be an opportunity for us to play our own sports amongst ourselves.
Mm. Well, obviously Antrim is on full lockdown now, isn't it? It is kind of mad that a section of this island is on full lockdown and a section of this island can still go and technically queue for fish and chips if they want. But it is a fairly strange sensation, I'd imagine, thinking to yourself, God, will we ever get this back again? And like he's obviously at the very acute end of it because of his age and that he's back after a 6-year absence. But it goes for every football player, really, and every athlete in the world at the moment, like thinking to themselves, I've got a very finite amount of time to actually achieve things in my sport. This is now taking away a good slice of that. It's obviously particularly acute if you're in the Olympic Games, and you can only do this once every 4 years for people this year. But for all the GAA players, they're losing a good bit of time. All the slog that they've put in over the course of November, December, January could be for nothing at this point. So these are the different things, but it's a great piece that Arthur has done with him. Like, he was diagnosed with Crohn's disease in 2011 and has come back. Like by all accounts, like I haven't seen him play yet this year, but by all accounts he's been absolutely sensational. And maybe like this could be one of the benefits of if we come back at some point later on this summer and it's a full knockout schedule, that like there could be, I don't know, a big game that Antrim are involved in that's knockout that could be televised, and that all kind of television rights are off the table, and that everything is televised and everything is shown, and we see a little bit more of these teams. There could be a potential byproduct of all of this, as much as we don't know at the moment. But it's a great piece and worth checking out right now on offtheball.com.
Yeah, okay. And Colm Key's piece about the leagues is a suggestion that the start of the championship is supposed to start on the 9th and 10th, that weekend of May. That looks like a deadline that's now going to be impossible to meet. They're going to shelve the leagues with the exception of some promotion and relegation in the lower tier hurling, and that there'll be another conference with County Board Chairman later on today. What have you got
The Irish Daily Star this morning, Tokyo no is the headline. Olympics set to be rescheduled, but Stars blast IOC dithering. 2020 Olympic Games set to be postponed due to COVID-19 crisis. Heffernan slams IOC for leaving competitors in limbo, and Kelly Harrington says people's health must come first with the Games. We had her on the show as well yesterday morning. You can check out her quotes on offtheball.com. Dick Pound basically coming out yesterday to say that the Games will be rescheduled till 2021. FAI board split on boss. Meanwhile, this is Paul Lennon, and he's got an exclusive that there is no clear consensus amongst the FAI board over whether Mick McCarthy should stay in charge of Ireland if the team reaches the Euros next year. So his contract with the association expires on July 31st, with Stephen Kenny then scheduled to take over. But this obviously changes everything because of the fact that the Euros are kicked back, and the potential, of course, for Ireland to qualify via playoff. So no clear decision or no clear leaning at the moment from the FAI board, it seems.
Mick McCarthy is of the opinion that he should remain as manager for the finals, so honouring the intention of the deal he agreed with the FAI in November 2018, if not the letter of it. However, Kenny is adamant that he will step up from his current role as Under-21 Supremo on August 1st. And he enjoys support amongst a number of the 11 members of the FAI board, are the details of that. So how do they wrestle? What happens? Is it like is it a penalty shootout? What do we do? How do we separate this?
Ooh, very good question.
FIFA? Mick plays long ball Ireland and Kenny plays pass.
Good shout. So what it's going to be is that it is going to be FIFA, but Mick McCarthy goes into the room first, picks his team, sets up his tactics, leaves the room. Stephen Kenny comes in, sets his team, changes his tactics, whatever, and then they just simulate the game. They don't actually play; they simulate the game, and whatever way the FIFA players carry out their instructions best, and whichever manager's instructions actually allow these robots to perform the best, actually gets the Ireland job. I think that's a fair enough way of doing it.
0-0 draw goes to penalties. I mean, that's exactly what happens. No chances, no corners, no free kicks. 0-0 draw. No, actually, that's not what happens. Kenny's team wins 3-0.
Well, it might do. I've certainly seen people park the bus in FIFA before. When I say see people, I've done it myself, and it's actually not the most unsuccessful tactic in the world. It can happen. It can happen in real life, so therefore it can happen in FIFA. So I wouldn't write Mick McCarthy's simulation team off just yet. I think he might actually have a chance in that. The Mirror this morning, a couple of football stories. No fans, no way. Premier League and EFL players will revolt against matches behind closed doors.
Why?
So this is a John Cross exclusive. And Mirror Sport understands players from all levels of the game are against matches being resumed without any fans because of the coronavirus. They've voiced major concerns to the PFA after both the Premier League raises a strong possibility last week. So, like, is this not the same point that Rooney was making last week?
But at that stage, it's different, right? At that stage, like, well, at that stage, we know a lot more, right? We're not talking about in 2 weeks' time, are we?
No, it would be when things are safe to resume. But like
May the 2nd, as early as that.
Is it like since we've kind of come down the slope quite slowly, I would have thought, haven't we, in terms of kind of semi-lockdown, full lockdown? I'm talking about the UK here, obviously. Like, do you go back up the way a lot quicker, or what do you do? Like, do you go to a situation where you are playing games behind closed doors, and then a few weeks later you're playing games in front of full stadiums? How does that work? Like, we don't know, but I would have thought that it's going to be everything back at a quicker pace than the way it went the other way. No,
I don't know. I think that it'll be graduated slow. Like, if you think about what's happened in Wuhan, and again, they've slowly gone back to, but there's social distancing still, like, and there's a significant concern that there'll be a comeback of the virus when people get a bit lax and complacent. So I can't see there being big crowds at any point until August, September, if we're lucky. But could be wrong with that.
The huge swathes of money existing in the game obviously need to go into making that a possibility, because speaking on a purely selfish level for all sports fans, that would be an amazing thing to have at some point in a few months' time, that even if there is wide concern about the virus making a second wave or whatever it is, that you do have almost quarantined sets of players who can be fully tested, can be fully seen to be fit to go out into a football pitch without any threat to their own livelihoods or just livelihoods of their family, and then be able to engage in it. When you have a controlled amount of individuals like that, it might be possible given the amount of money at football's disposal. But this is something that we can't really consider for quite some time, really, given how much the health service is going to be under pressure over the next few months. It's a huge luxury to have if we get to that point in a few months' time. Yeah,
and look, we absolutely need to see exactly how everything pans out, particularly as the surge hits. So, go on.
Just another story there from the back of the Mirror. Rio Ferdinand says Liverpool should lose the league title, and it's not because I'm a Man United fan. It is now about life or death. So he reckons that the season should be scrapped, which will infuriate Jurgen Klopp, says the Mirror. And then you've got coronavirus wrecks 3 more events. That's the Olympic dream is over. And then you've got the Europa League and the Champions League, both set to be postponed indefinitely.
The Irish Examiner, their front page is a column from Michal Quirk. Securing right result against a shared opponent is now our priority. He says that there'll be no collective training. They're absolutely obeying all the rules, and there's individual programs happening, but ultimately none of that matters at the moment. And it's a good piece here at the referees. Referees will need access to county training to stay sharp, says O'Dwyer. So Paul O'Dwyer is the leading hurling match official, and he wants referees to have the opportunity to referee inter-county training sessions, which we know most inter-county managers would like to have, because it builds a relationship between high-profile referees and your team. The Dubs would do that over a long period of time. Irish AFL players facing uncertain times. So a bunch of them have flown home immediately, but there's a good line here from Maurice Brosnan in Melbourne. In Sydney, Derry GWS Giants star Colin Brown couldn't leave the country. That was because he recently lost his passport and had to source an emergency one. With airlines grounding flights and others like Emirates suspending passenger operations as of tomorrow, it means the next available flight for him is Thursday. I had a decision to stay or go. I just thought of mum back home, everywhere closing. She needs support, my little brother, on that, said the 19-year-old. Can you imagine being 19 in Australia? Global pandemic strikes. You've effectively lost your job for now. And your passport is lost and you're trying to get home. I can only imagine the homesickness that he's feeling at the moment and how far away Australia must feel. You know, we constantly talk about how communications makes the world seem pretty small, and the global ebb and flow of Irish people probably does mean that there are people in the locality, but I've no doubt Colin Brown's feeling a little bit lonely at the moment.
It's mad, really, that we were sitting here a week ago actually talking about the AFL season potentially starting. That it's gone from that position where there was football going to happen, granted in front of closed doors and in front of no crowds, to a point where people are actually struggling to get home because there's multiple stories outside of sport like this as well, where airlines just aren't flying out of Australia anymore and people are almost trapped in that side of the world, where I guess in this part of the world it has been kind of a slower descent, as I've already mentioned, and it almost serves as an implicit warning to people to go get to where you want to be for a potential lockdown. But it seems that in Australia, a few people are going to get trapped, and I know it's been obviously the case in South America for very different reasons. The Racing Post I've got next to the back page says flame going out on Olympic dream, Tokyo Games to be moved from July start. Like this, I guess everybody's taking it as fact really this morning. We should say that it hasn't been confirmed yet. Like Dick Pound is as authoritative a voice as you can get on something like this, though. So it probably will be the case, and it should be confirmed very shortly. But we should say that it actually hasn't been confirmed just yet, that it has been pushed back. So something you'd expect in the coming days. They've given themselves 4 weeks, but really at this point, you'd imagine that Jenga Tower is going to fall on the people who really wanted to see the game start in July.
Yeah, so that is definitely going to be the end of that. There's a story, Kieran Fallon defeated by supermarket panic buys on the front. Kieran Fallon went to Tesco in Bury St Edmunds around 7 a.m. Everything appeared quiet. Before I knew it, people just appeared like locusts and there was nothing left that anyone wanted. I've never seen anything like it. Certainly not like that in Dubai, so it was a bit of a shock to the system. And then tried to call into a nearby Aldi on the way home, but they were queuing out the door at 7:30. I managed to get some supplies in Newmarket Tesco on Saturday morning when it appeared to quieten down a bit, but there was no pasta and baked beans are scarce. So Kieran Fallon was just back from Dubai and didn't realise that panic buying a go-go in the UK at the moment. I have the London Times next. Do I have the London Times next? What's next? Racing Post, the Mail. Sorry, the Mail is next. I got the Irish Daily Mail here for you. Olympics off, fairly straightforward. Headline from them: IOC postponed games until next summer. So summer 2021 is what they're saying. There's a picture there of Rob Heffernan and his coach. Sorry, Rob Heffernan with 2 race walkers, David Kenny and Brendan Boyce, training in Fota Island. Just in the maybe there's a depth perception issue. They're a bit close to each other, aren't they?
Noticed it myself.
Are they a bit close to each other?
Am I the only person who is now watching everything and thinking to myself,
wow, yes.
Oh my God, this
Don't
is like...
Don't shake his hands.
Yeah, in every single walk of life. What classic game club were we doing yesterday? Sure, you were on
2014.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. God, it's been a long 24 hours. I saw an elderly man sitting beside somebody in the 2014 All-Ireland hurling final while watching it back, and I was like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh wait, sorry, that was 6 years ago. This is not happening in the present. And like you see people, like when I was watching Better Call Saul, handshake, when he walked into the podium, I'm like, what are you doing? Yes. What are you doing? Don't shake his hand.
Yes.
And it's like, oh wait, hold on a minute, this is fictitious.
On Friday morning, last at 9 o'clock in the morning, the Aussie rules season kicked off, and you know, they had the ban on handshakes, so they were continuing to tackle. But then after at half time, they're all like high-fiving. You're like, lads. Like, maybe they wanted it to be suspended at that point. Maybe they're like, look, let's do whatever we can to make this be the end of it, because, I don't know.
Do you ever think that you've shaken a hand for the last time?
I mean, it's possible. Like, I hear people saying it's all going to go back to normal, but like, it's going to go back to normal once we get a vaccine and once everybody gets a vaccine. But I do think that people are going to be much more cautious about everything, because if COVID-19 has proven to be so dangerous and so difficult for everybody to deal with around the world, what's to stop the next variation being so difficult and dangerous and it not being something that we have a vaccine for too? So, I wouldn't be very surprised if a lot of the casual touching that happened in the world is gone.
That's disappointing. Who was the last? What was the last hand you shook then? That's kind of the obvious follow-up question here.
I don't know. I mean, Kenny Cunningham was in the office a couple of weeks ago, and Tommy shook his hands, and I was like, oh, Tommy.
Scenes. Yeah, this was that was certainly the last handshake I've witnessed in real time. But the last one I've actually enjoyed, I don't know, but it's emotional to think that could be a thing of the past. The Daily Telegraph this morning, I've got, I might give the Guardian to you, Ger. I've got the flame goes out is the main headline here, with a photo of somebody in front of the Tokyo 2020 logo. And finals of Champions League and Premiership plans to complete Europa League. Finals of Champions League and Europa League called off by UEFA. And then a separate story, Premiership plans to complete season without delaying 2020-2021. So another bit of ambition being shown by a sporting organisation there.
Paul Hayward, the headline in his piece, Team GB can be NHS team in Tokyo. And this is... GB Olympians can show our debt to heroes of NHS in Tokyo 2021. I understand the sentiment, and I know that people are looking for ways to somehow tie what's happening in the world to our own jobs and to make our stuff relevant. But, like, obviously the Italian team is going to feel the same about representing their health service, and the American team, and the Irish team, and the Tokyo team, and the Japanese team, and if there are any Hong Kong athletes. Like, the whole notion that somehow the athletes then are burdened that their victory will be representative, or their defeat, which is most likely because more people lose than win, is somehow a stain on or a reflection of their relationship with their health service. Like, no. The Olympics are going to be a glorious distraction and an opportunity for us all to go, we're coming together to watch some sport, as opposed to this is a representation of how well we're going to do to work for the heroes of our health system, because the heroes of the health system are the same in every country around the world, all of them barely scraping together enough equipment to protect their own health, and burdening athletes with the notion of representing them, and just the NHS. I don't know. I'd be staying away from that kind of stuff for now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting as well to see the varying degrees of release that is going to come in a few months' time as well. I don't mean in the Olympics or whatever it is. Like we were saying last week, that imagine the first Serie A game when fans are actually in the ground. It is going to be incredible. And so the same goes for La Liga as well, after all the hardship that they're going to go through, that they're already obviously sustaining over the last few weeks. That I think that moment when people come together, and in a country like that, I think it'll be quite obvious, all right. I think here it'll be a bit different. I think obviously we don't wear our heart in our sleeve as much as, say, the Italians and the Spanish do, but I think there'll be kind of like a quiet satisfaction, a quiet release to, being able to do something simple like going to a match with your mate or a family member or something like that. So I think that's probably where the release will come from. I think saying that people are going to be representing their health service is probably a step too far.
The London Times, their back page headline, Olympics set for 2021, and picture of one of the curlers who is joining the virus fight. And then rugby aims to be on TV first. So rugby's Premiership chiefs were apparently under criticism for being slow acting, but now they've responded like Boris Johnson, and they want their competition to be the first sport back on TV. They're determined to finish the season, even if it means playing summer double headers in empty stadiums and clashing with England's tour to Japan. Nothing's going to clash with England's tour to Japan, because England's tour to Japan is not going to happen. Ireland's tour to Australia is still technically on, but that's not going to happen either. So they're going to try and play rugby in the summer behind closed doors. If it's safe to do so and everybody says, yeah, let's go for it, and it's not going to put any extra strain on the health service, then putting stuff on, reminding people about how we're going to get back to life, using it as an advertising platform to tell everybody to maintain social distancing and wash your hands.
Trying a battle to become the first sporting organisation back post-coronavirus is the most needless thing ever. Like, they allowed them to do an arm wrestle or whatever sort of macho man contest they want, but trying to measure themselves by how quick they get back after coronavirus is patently ridiculous.
All right. 087 9180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Just add the contact there, OTB, and you can send us whatever you want, just no filth.